The world of handmade business can be tough when trying to monetize what you love. We've got truth bombs and motivation to help you find your way through. Passion to profit, let's start today, 'cause the world needs what you create. Tune in right now, it's your shot to learn how to be a handmade boss.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the How to Be a Handmade Boss podcast. So today we are going to be talking about what should you pay yourself? How much should that be? What should your finances kind of look like the minute you go self-employed or the minute you start a business? And I actually really love talking about money. It's actually one of my weird things that I really encourage everyone I know to be really open and honest about money, talking about like investments, pensions, taxes, what we should be doing with it, VAT. Like, I really love to encourage everyone to be really open about talking about money. I know obviously there are some people out there who maybe don't want to talk about it, but for me, I really like taking down the veil and being a little bit more open, like I say, and honest about all of the things that maybe we don't know, or maybe we want to have help with, or we're not really sure of. So answering the question, what should I pay myself, is a really loaded question. And it really depends on your personal circumstances, whether you're part-time, full-time, whether you have any like additional income, like from interest or anything else that you have, investments maybe. And it really sort of depends on how you want the business to be for you, because some people want a business to be an investment that they kind of pull money out of later on down the line, which is fine, and others really want to be something that pays them a wage, that basically pays their living expenses, bills, rent, mortgage, food, whatever. So start by looking at that and being like, okay, what is this business for me? Is it an investment that I want to grow and grow and grow and not take anything out of for the first 2 years, 3 years? And then eventually later on down the line, it's almost like securing myself a really good job or having an investment that pays a lot of dividends, right? Or is your business, which I think probably a lot of us will be, and most of us listening will be, your business, ultimately, you want it to be something that pays you a wage so that you can pay your bills and live and enjoy life, okay? So for this, I would recommend, so finances wise, how I tend to run things, I always keep my business and my personal finances separate. So I use Starling Bank. I use Lloyds Bank for like my own personal money stuff. Although, to be honest with you, I would probably transfer to Starling at some point. I then use Starling for business stuff. Starling, to be honest, for me, again, not sponsored, not paid to say anything, but I love Starling. It is so easy to create saving spaces, virtual cards, which is basically cards that you can use to pay on like Apple Pay and all that kind of thing without having to wait for a physical card in the mail for different bank accounts. So let's say, for example, you wanted to pay for fuel out of one savings space, you could create a virtual card, pay through that, and then it's literally taken straight out of that space, which is something that not a lot of banks do, or certainly Lloyds don't, but anyway. So I keep my two financial pots completely separate. The reason for that is because it would get really confusing really, really fast. And you almost wouldn't know. I mean, also from like a bookkeeping standpoint, it's a lot easier. And also you can easily spot and see things that are going out that perhaps shouldn't be, things that are going in, which perhaps should be. And you can overall just keep an eye on things just that little bit more. And you know that this card is for a business expense. This card is for a personal. And literally, to be honest, I just have the two cards. I have one joint account card, which I never use. I have one personal card, one business card, and that is the cards that I have because I like to keep things simple. I don't have like a credit card or anything like that because I lose it, and then I just end up not using it anyway. I've never actually used a credit card. I've used it briefly to pay for a coffee when we were getting our mortgage, because obviously your credit score goes up when you ironically use a credit card. But I don't use a credit card, so I can't comment on that because I don't have one. So but what I find with that is having them separate means that they are for two different uses. The personal one is very much like, okay, if I want to go out for dinner or if I want to buy myself a new pair of shoes, I'm not dipping into the business funds, and vice versa. If you want to pay money for some Instagram templates or, I don't know, the HBSA course, then that is a separate business expense. Most of all, or all of all, should be tax deductible. Okay, now I'm not a tax expert, a finances expert, a bookkeeping expert. This is just all the things that I do. So in my business account, I will have like saving spaces for my tax bill, for my VAT bill, for staff pay, for my own pay. I will have a profit account and I will have a business investment account. And those are like the 6 or 7 accounts that I have. I also have like a current account as well, which things go in and out of every single day, every single week, every single month. But those are like the generic saving spaces that I have in terms of business. Okay. Personal, I obviously have savings, holidays, car. I have investments in there as well. I have my pension pot coming out of there too. And I have separate little accounts within that main account, spaces really to save up for those things. So that's just a brief overview of kind of how I manage things. There are some other accounts as well, but to be honest, they have such little in. Like I have like a self-care account where I put money in for like a massage every month or something like that. I have a hair account where I can pay to get my hair done and not have to worry about it. But, you know, to keep it simple, to keep it easy, that is what I use the 2 different accounts for and the saving spaces within them. Okay. So when it comes to paying yourself, one thing I will say is you can't expect your business to immediately get at a level where it can pay you a wage. Okay, that can be a full-time wage, a part-time wage. For me, there has to be some level of, okay, this is not going to get to that point straight off the bat, because the business is literally like a tree. When you plant it, you can't expect it to bear fruit straight away. The poor little sapling is only tiny. It needs some nurturing. It needs some water. It needs some sun. It needs you to talk to it or whatever. And it needs some love. Eventually, it will get maybe a year old, maybe 18 months old, maybe even 2 years old, and it will start to bear fruit. Small fruit, but it'll start to bear fruit. And it'll be like the loveliest thing, because you'll be like, I have nurtured this thing, I have grown this thing, and it is now bearing fruit. And I can now reap the whole rewards of my effort, energy, and labor and love. A business is very similar to that. And I do get a lot of questions where they're like, I've been running for 3 months, I'm not making enough to pay myself. And it's like, you're actually on track. Like that is actually completely normal. As for a time scale as to when your business should be making enough to pay yourself, that really depends. It depends on how much time you're putting into your business. It depends on the kind of tasks and things. It depends on if you're having mentorship or not. It depends on a lot of different things as to how soon you should be looking at. But I would certainly be expecting to pay myself something, whether that be £500 a month, £1,000 a month, £2,000 a month, whatever. I would certainly be expecting that business to start paying me something from right around the year mark. Anything before the year is a big juicy bonus. However, this leads me on to my next point. For me, and I have started businesses, built businesses, I've done a lot in like business sense. So my general rule of thumb in my head is when I'm starting something, I'm not taking any money out for the first year, because all of the profits are being reinvested back in. I've done both things. I have done the thing where the minute the business starts, I'm taking profits out for me. And I've done businesses where the minute it starts making profits, I'm reinvesting it. The difference in 3, 5, 10 years, I mean, probably 5 years, But for me, I can measure a huge difference. The ones where I reinvested the profits are seeing immeasurable growth, amazing scaling, growing, happy, content with how they're doing. The ones where I started taking money out straight away, they're faltering. They're okay, but they're just hovering about that line of breaking even. So for me, in my personal experience, to reinvest the money back in, you're going to be looking at a much bigger business in 3 to 5 years' time. It's kind of like going back to that little tree. If you fertilize it, it's going to grow bigger. If you keep taking things out of the soil and planting things around it, and you have your tree, but you also have some sprouts and some strawberries and some cucumbers growing around it, eventually the nutrients in the soil are going to get dried up like so much that your poor tree is going to be like, I have nothing to feed off of. Like, what am I supposed to do here? So if you're feeling a way about not having enough money to pay yourself and you're under the year to 18-month mark, I'd say, hey, that's quite normal. And there's a little bit of patience involved there. Okay. If you are over that and you're still not seeing enough to pay yourself, that is where I'd be looking at, okay, I need to there's 2 things I can do here to get enough money to pay myself. Literally just 2 things to look at. Number 1, reduce expenses. Is there something that I'm paying for that I'm not getting a good return on investment for back? Is there some kind of expense that perhaps I can stop? Am I using expensive suppliers, buying too much in bulk? Have I got a subscription that's kind of floating around somewhere that I'm not using? And again, this is where having a business bank account is awesome because it's not all mixed up with your own personal stuff. Okay. So you can either decrease expenses or increase income. Those are the 2 options that you have, really. So as for increasing income, that is what the HBSA is for. That is what my free challenges are for, albeit a very small portion, like very small piece of the puzzle, but they're still there to help. That is what my book is for, and that is called How to Be a Handmade Boss on Amazon. That is what working with me one-to-one is for. That is what we are for. So obviously we can give you advice on reducing expenses and all that good stuff, but really we are here to help you make more money, right? So things like making more money would be increasing your conversion rate, which, by the way, we do have an awesome training for that. It's literally called How to Get More Etsy Sales Within 7 Days. We talk about conversion rate, we talk about social media traffic, we talk about the algorithm, and we talk about how to utilize all of those things. So you can grab that at handmadebosses.com/conversion. I will leave it in the show notes so if you want a nice little easy link to click on. But that is what that is for as well. So you can look at your conversion rate. You can look at your profits per unit sold. So that could literally be increasing your prices by 10%. That's a really easy way to increase your profits. You could look at cutting corners in terms of creation. And you can also increase your eyeballs on your shop. So there's a few little things that you can do there to start to make more money, start to make more sales, more revenue, more profit. But really, those are the main kind of options for you. You could start doing things like a wholesale account, maybe. You could do influencers and getting featured. But for a lot of people, those are the kind of the main things. Okay. So that is really your choices when it comes to, if you are past that 12 to 18 month mark and you're still not seeing the sales that you want to be seeing, I would say look at those 2 things, expenses, profit, increasing, decreasing. I would also look at how much effort you have honestly put in over the last 12 to 18 months, because someone that has been putting 2 hours a day in for 5 days a week for a year to 18 months on a consistent basis, they are going to be seeing very different results from someone who has gone all in for a week and then taken a step back for 3 weeks, or who has gone all in for 2 months, then not done anything with it for 6 months. Those results are going to be very skewed, very, very different. So again, even looking at that time scale of 12 to 18 months, it's not a linear process. It's not a linear journey. It's very much dependent on, okay, how much effort have you put in here? Okay. Another consideration to have here is you don't want to, like, if you do get to that point where you're able to start paying yourself something, you don't want to go all in. So you don't want to be like, right, this has to replace my full-time wage, and then start paying yourself and then it completely drain the business, because you really want to have at least some kind of rainy day fund within your personal finances, of course, but also your business as well. So what you don't want is you don't want to have like a really bad month one month and be completely totaled by that in terms of down to net zero, like there is just nothing in there. And this is something that I do see a lot of, where people will say, well, Steph, I've had like a really bad month and like I can't afford anything now. I can't afford to get anything. And you will get months like that. Like, this is unavoidable. Yes, there are some things that you can do, and there are some strategies that we can put into place to kind of try and level that out a little bit. But you will always get income dips, income highs. And that is just the nature of it. So for me, I even that out completely by when I have a good month, I'm putting a lot of that aside because I know that maybe next month or the month afterwards will not be as good. So you want to kind of take that into account. And it might be helpful to put all this down on some kind of spreadsheet and kind of work it out that way, where you can literally have this is this, this is that, this is this. And you could do it as like a percentage. So whatever your business makes, for example, you put 5% away for this, 10% away for that, 20% away for tax, 20% away for VAT, you know, if you are VAT registered in the UK. But you could do it that way, or you could do it as a set amount. Okay, depending on how much your business makes every month. Okay, so you want to, when you do start paying yourself, I would start it slowly in increments. I didn't do this the first time I started paying myself, and I ended up completely draining everything, being like, yay, I paid myself, but oh no, the business has nothing. And it's kind of like, there's no better or worse. Like it's you're better off splitting it and having half for the business and half for you. So that A, you don't have the stress of being like, oh, like the business account is empty. And B, you still get a little something. Okay. So what I would say here as well is, when you're first starting out, don't compare your part-time, full-time job wage to what you're going to be paying yourself. I did this again, and I was like kind of expecting my business to, I mean, I didn't get paid that much anyway, but expecting my business right away to take up the slack. And like I said, that little tree, it took some time. Okay. It took some loving, nurturing, watering, feeding, sunlight before it grew to that point. And that's one thing that I would say is that, you know, you've got to be realistic with your wage, and you've got to do it in a way that, like I said, will not bankrupt the business straight off the bat. That being said, you also don't want to fall into the other trap, which is not paying yourself at all. And I've actually done both. I've actually overpaid myself and then gone the other way and not paid myself at all. And it ended up being like, oh my God, like I need some kind of level here. So when you are looking at, okay, I think I'm okay to pay myself. I have things set aside for like emergency fund, my tax bill, my VAT bill, if that applies to you, any staff wages or contractor wages, any supply pots that I need to like pay things out of, anything along those lines. And you're like, you've got everything covered and there's a little bit left, and you're thinking, okay, I would look at how much that reliably is every month. So you want to be looking at maybe 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. And I'd taken like a little average, and whatever is left that you visibly don't want to touch. And a great way to actually do this in a really easy way is have a savings space, and every single week or month, put money aside into that and see if you miss it. Because if you don't miss it, then that is a great amount to pay yourself, because it's not affecting the business at all. You can pay yourself that and it's all fine. And that is something that I wish that I'd done. I mean, obviously back then they didn't have Starling Bank, so saving spaces rather. So it wasn't really an option for me. But I did start doing that, but I did it in the old fashioned way where I literally got cash out and I put them in envelopes. So whatever way you want to do this is fine. But put money aside every week, every month. I do mine every single week. So for me, weekly is easy because I can see it kind of racking up. And yeah, just have a look and see if you miss it. That could be £100, that could be £50, that could be £500, and put it away every week. And for the next 6 weeks, see if you miss it. And if you don't, then that is a good amount to pay yourself, because it's not affecting anything finances wise. It's not affecting your personal accounts. It's not affecting your business accounts. It's not affecting anything. That is effectively spare money. I'm doing air quotes, that you can use to pay yourself. And that would be a really good way that I would do it. Okay. Now, as for the amount, you can easily Google minimum wage for UK, Scotland, US, Texas, Idaho, whatever. But you want to make sure that you are paying yourself a decent amount. So I'm not saying minimum wage is what you should be paying yourself, because for a lot of you, that is nowhere near enough. But you should be paying yourself enough that it feels like it's worth it, but not so much that you're going to be draining your business accounts. Okay, so that could be a ballpark figure. So let's say minimum wage where you are is £12 an hour. But really, to make it feel worthwhile, you want to be paying yourself £16 an hour, right? That is a good kind of bracket to look at. Now, let's say you spend, I don't know, 10 hours a week within your business. That's £120 a week versus £160 a week. Okay, that's your brackets. And then look at, okay, if I paid myself that, how would it be spread about in my personal bank account? Because obviously that is essentially going to be your wage. So look at that kind of thing, right? So when I first started my handmade business, I was paying myself a little bit less than what I was getting, well, quite a bit less actually, than what I was getting in my full-time job. That being because I knew that, and by the way, at this point, the business was about 10 months old. So it actually started paying me, I think about 9 months old actually. It actually started making enough quite quickly to pay me very early on. So it actually started paying me a lot quicker than, what I would say 12 to 18 months. So that was great. But I wasn't taking it all straight away because I still knew that I had to strike that balance between reinvestment and paying yourself. And that is the biggest thing, is that it is a balancing act. You have to still pay yourself, but you also have to still have that amount of money to reinvest back in the business, because sooner or later, if you're not reinvesting, your business is literally going to dry up. And that is where we get issues with like businesses that don't change or go along with the changes of life, or just end up being so like boring and dried up that no one really cares about them all that much. And that is really because they don't have that reinvestment. They're not investing in the business growth in any way, shape or form. So for me now, currently, I am constantly reinvesting. Every single week, every single month, I am thinking, right, okay, what's a weak spot within my business? Okay, I need to throw some money there. What is a strong spot? Like, what do I need to double down on? Okay, this. So I need to make sure that everything else noise-wise, over complications, is gotten rid of, and that therefore will save me money, and therefore I can double down on that one stream that's doing really, really well. What can I do in terms of time as well? Because obviously we talk a lot about finances and money, but time is very much a similar thing to it. So really, I really hope that's given you some kind of guidance. There's also some talk around when should your wages go up. I would certainly be looking at inflation. So let's say, for example, you pay yourself, just to keep it easy, £100 a week, which is obviously not enough, but that's just to keep it easy in my head. And inflation that year is 4%. Times it by 4%, and then you should get kind of roughly what you should be paying yourself now. Instead of doing that, you could also look at your bills, how much they've gone up by, and simply pay yourself the equivalent to what it's gone up by. But there is no real number. There is no real number. It can differ for everybody depending on where you are in the UK, in the US, in the world, okay? And there is no real number here. What I would say is it's really about striking a balance and making sure that you put percentages or some kind of money aside, like I said, for rainy day fund. And that can be 1 month of expenses covered, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, six months, just in case anything happens with the income. And then you can continue to run the business in a healthy way so that, you know, if you don't make sales 1 month, the next month your business is gone, kind of thing. And that honestly is a game changer in terms of if you have a slow month, busy month, whatever. Also making sure to put things away for tax bills, VAT bills, staff wages if you have it, your own wages, profit as well. I'd really recommend having a separate profit account because that is money that's in a nice little pot forever if you need it for anything. Whether that's a mentorship program that you've seen or a Canva subscription or something like that, right? And also the other side of the coin as well, your personal finances, making sure that they are all okay. Really, I am a big fan of having safety nets, and that for me makes me feel lighter. It makes me feel better. And it reduces the amount of stress that I have in terms of, oh my God, I need to make sure I'm doing this, this, and this, right? So I hope that has been helpful. I know that's overwhelming, and you might be like, Steph, that is a lot of pots. Like, my business is not anywhere near being able to do that. Just do it on a percentage basis, even if that's £1 a week or £3 a week or £5 a week. Start small. I'm a massive fan of the saying, if you can't manage a small amount of money, then you won't be able to manage a big amount of money. And this is something that's played out in my life, in my own finances, and in other people's that I've known over and over again. Get really good at managing what you do currently have, and naturally you'll be good at managing all the abundance that I'm sure is coming your way. So guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I will catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for tuning into How to Be a Handmade Boss. And if you're eager to boost your Etsy sales within just 7 days, then be sure to join my most popular free training at handmadebosses.com/conversion. You can also find the link in the show notes as well. Keep an eye out for our next episode where we'll be continuing our journey towards handmade business success together. And until then, keep crafting and stay inspired because the world really does need those special creations that only you can make.